Hi, my name is Eve Heaton. I'm a technology coach with the Beaufort County School District. And the other day I got to work with a group of third graders and we were making poems for Poetry Month. So April is Poetry Month. And I was trying something new with this group. So I'm really going to give a shout out to the teacher who let me come in and work with these third graders to complete this Sky Art Haiku activity. We learned a lot doing this activity. It's the first time I've ever done it. So I thought I would share some of the problems we ran into and some suggestions if you would like to try it yourself. Because this was a sky art project, the theme we gave students for the haiku was sunrise or sunset. And the mistake that we made was that we were trying to do everything in one 90-minute ELA block. So that includes all the technology pieces as well as creating an original haiku poem. To be fair, students did not have a lot of experience writing haiku poems. So it was kind of a lot we were throwing on a student sort of in a 90-minute block. And we were getting poems that sort of read like this. The sun is very cool. The sun is warm and very hot. The sun is pretty. And we did give them points because they were hitting those syllable requirements for a haiku, but they weren't really using descriptive sort of feeling language that you sort of associate with poetry. So we just stopped the class and we sort of brainstormed words that you associate with sunrise and sunset and feeling. So we asked the class, how do you feel when you're looking at a sunrise or sunset? What sort of activities do you associate with a sunrise or sunset? What animals do you see? And we asked the students to go back with sort of these new buzzwords and come up with a better haiku poem. Now that did not go over well with these third graders who just wanted to be fine with their little the sun is very cool, the sun is pretty poetry. But we felt in order to have good quality haikus to sort of put out in the hallway, they need to do that revision piece. So I did love that one little boy, and I'm going to show you his. He associated sunsets with camping. So he sort of what they do under the night sky, which I thought was great and was such a huge difference from the very sort of boring language he had been using before. So the kids were capable, they just didn't have a lot of exposure. You'll want to give students a template to write from. It just saves you a whole lot of time rather than having them open up a blank Google Slides. We did choose slides over docs because images were much easier to manipulate in slides than in Google Docs. We did know that we were going to print these out, so it needed to be 8.5 by 11, which is not the default size for a Google slideshow. So to change that, you just go to File, Page Setup. You're going to choose a custom setup and just choose 8.5 by 11. So that way it just lends itself to printing so much easier. The slide that I wanted them to work on, I did give them sort of blocks to write in, so they're going to replace this with their own writing. Initially, it was white with black lettering, but I found that black lettering did not look as good, especially with a lot of the dark colors that students chose. So the gray background, so I just chose background here and made it gray, was just so the white would stand out because we knew we were going to be changing this color right here. I also was able to set the sizing here that I wanted and the font that I wanted as well. So if you let students sort of put their own text box in there, you're just going to get a variety of things, font, colors, etc. that you're probably going to have to edit out anyways. I put my instructions on the side here as opposed to being down below. These are third graders, so they're sort of emerging use of technology. So it helps to have everything spelled out in the order that you're going to be using it. So the first thing we were going to do is change the color of our background. And I did give them the sample as well, so they sort of had a general idea of what theirs should look like. This whole project idea came from an art teacher in Canada, and he showed us how he used this Adobe site to find colors for the night sky, and it was very cool. So the students open it up right here, and they either search for night sky or sunrise sky, and they can look through all of these wonderful color templates, and it gives you the palettes as well. And there's multiple pages, but once they find something they like, they actually touch on it. So not these two, because I had a lot of students touching on these two little white dots, but they just touch here and it opens up the 5 color palettes that are used in this picture. So once I had that established, and I gave them about 4 minutes to do it, we moved on to how we can now set up our night sky or sunrise sky. Now we did this together as a group, so it did go a little slowly, and honestly this is kind of the hardest part of it. So once I come over here, I show them that if they hover over these numbers at the bottom, we can copy the code for the color. So they want to push it until they see the word copy change to copied. So right there. And then they come back over and we're going to click on background. And we're not going to do one color because we have 5 colors. So that's actually considered a gradient. So I had the students sort of click on this caret, move over to gradient. We're not using their gradients. We're going to do a custom gradient right there. And because we have 5 colors, there's only 2 right here. So there's one at the bottom or at the top, one at the bottom right there. So we can add some stops. So we need to make sure they equal 5. So it was a very mini math lesson right there. And we have the color for the first stop already there. So we're going to click on the first stop, which indicates the top of the page. And we're going to change it from gray right here. So we're going to choose that little caret. And you could choose custom, but I had all the students just hit this plus sign, and all they have to do at this point is do Control V to replace the hex code up in here. They hit OK. And at the top, they'll see their first color. So we go back to the other tab, and I went very slowly, so I'm going kind of fast with you all. But right there we go copy to copied, come back. We go to the second stop, so we need to make sure it's got that blue highlight there. We click on the caret, click on the plus sign, just do Control V. We get the second color, and we can see it sort of graduate, and we do it with the rest of them until we have the entire, all these hex code, all these colors into our slide. So over here in step 2, which actually I'm going to change these. I should have had them stepped out so I could refer, because I kept saying second bullet point and the kids weren't really sort of getting that. So right here in step 2, I had them search for some silhouette grass, and I did spell it out for the students because silhouette is very difficult to spell. So I had them go to insert image, search the web. They typed it in here. They could have copied and pasted it as well. It would have been faster. And all they do is just simply hit enter. And hypothetically, you then could click on it, hit insert sort of down here at the bottom, or you can drag it on to your slide. And it should not have the black background, or the white background, I'm sorry. But a lot of them did, which was super annoying. So I would have students go back and try again until they found one that didn't have a white background right there. So they would try various ones, but I did run into a couple of students that just couldn't find anything. So in that case, what I did for them is I opened up a Google image search. I looked for silhouette grass. You have a tools option here under images, and you can switch it from color to transparent. And it's supposed to sort of pull up the grass that's transparent. You click on it in the preview window. You're looking for those black and white transparent squares, and you can just drag it over and drop it into your project right there. So anybody who was having a lot of problems, I sort of did that for them. And I wanted to make sure that the grass was at the bottom of the paper like this, and we had them stretch it out, and we did talk about resizing pictures from the corners versus from the top and bottom or side to side. The next thing was to add their silhouette in. Now, the art teacher that I saw, who, I'm assuming he's an art teacher actually, whose video that I saw, he actually had them search for an image of a person looking away. So right here is his video, and they searched for a person looking away. And I just thought, oh man, it would be so much better if they could have them looking away. So right here, you can see I've got all these kind of little silhouettes, and these are the students, and they're just so cute in there. So what I did was, before the lesson even began, like I walked in, I introduced myself, and I sort of showed them what we were doing, and I had them all open up their computer and go to their camera first. And we split the group in 2, so the teacher had half the group and I had the other half, and we took a picture of them sort of standing in a silhouette-y type pose. And I know that's sort of an odd framing of wording, but you don't want boring a silhouette where they're standing stick straight with their arms to their side. So you want some sort of light between their arms or their legs. So we sort of pulled up some various sort of poses that they could possibly do. Here was mine. This one I did right here. So we took a picture from the back. So this is mine. So the light would shine through, or the sky would shine through my arms right there and right there between my legs. So you'll see here, let me just close this out, that the students got super creative with their adorable little poses. So they just kind of posed themselves in a variety of different ways to make it a little more interesting, sort of viewing wise. And they loved having their little silhouettes in there. So what we did was, so let me just go right here. We went to a site called remove.bg. So this is the site. It's not blocked for students. So they would upload their image. So I'm going to go, this is my image, and it erases the background for you. We did have a couple people who had their hands taken off. It's not a perfect system, but I do like the fact that you have an edit option. So I had a couple of children whose hands sort of disappeared. So you can edit right here, and you've got a little paintbrush, and so you can restore or erase various sections. You can change your brush size, but if you're fine with the way it is, you hit download, and it downloads to sort of the bottom of your screen right here. I tell the children just to leave it there, because one of the best things about Google is that you can just drag these things up into your slideshow. So here's my little image. A lot of kids had a lot of sort of white space around it. So I did, if I noticed that, I kind of went in and cropped it. So if you have time, I would sort of teach them how to do it, crop it. And again, you have to reiterate, some students like smushed and mushed their pictures by resizing it from the top or bottom or side to side. They have to do it from the corners right there, and they sort of place it where they want it. I did have to adjust one child's, let me just see if I can find that child. They chose a tree, and so they're sort of larger than the tree. So I'm kind of hoping that people think that he's sort of in front of the tree. I had a similar situation over here where he made himself giant next to this tree. So I resized him to be proportionate right there in the editing phase. Students did need to recolor their photo to be more of a silhouette. So with the photo selected, they just click on Format Options. Under Recolor right here, so they sort of expand out Recolor. And we found that dark 4 was sort of a good recoloring option right there. At this point, the tech end of it is pretty much done. All students have to do is type into those boxes and write their poem. This is where it kind of went all wrong for us because, again, students were writing it from scratch, right on the fly, and they were a little over this whole project by this point. So make sure those poems are done ahead of time. Students then turned it into Google Classroom, where I sort of did some minor editing. So if they had some spelling errors or things were offline or needed to resize their picture, I was able to do it in this area. I did run across something interesting though. I found that the students' color schemes, if it was too dark at the bottom, that you really couldn't see the grass or the picture very well, the silhouette of the person. So you can go, I went ahead and changed it. The color scheme still stays the same. I just reversed the order so the light was at the bottom and the dark was on top. And I doubt even students noticed it. But to do that, you just go to background. You are going to select custom. And right here where it says angle, you're going to switch the angle to 270 and it reverses the color scheme right there. You can also make the colors sort of little, you can move them, you can see right here, you can move it so the light is a little bit higher up. You just click OK, and you'll see here that it is so much easier. I'm just going to sort of hit the undo button so you can sort of see. So here's the dark, and then the flipped makes it so much easier to see. Once I was done editing, I copied and pasted this into a larger Google slideshow with all of the students' work all on one massive slideshow. So this teacher can share it on social media, and it made printing so much easier. While it didn't go as smoothly as we originally hoped, I felt like the students really enjoyed the activity. And the teacher and I had great discussion about how I could modify it. In fact, one of her coworkers from across the hall is like, nope, come in and do this with me next week. So it did turn out super great. Despite all of our little hiccups. And I hope it's something that you want to try with your kids in your classroom.